What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And we are coming to you guys after the Cavs 115-105 win over the Washington Wizards. Chris, they have improved once again. 26 games into the season, they've lost just 4, and it's up to 22 wins. Taking away from this game, it is an interesting one that we came in kind of not really interested to watch, but the Wizards made it interesting, and the Cavs made it interesting as well with their lack of ability to shoot the basketball as something that we have come accustomed to. Maybe we've been spoiled, but when you talk about what this team has been able to do, when we talk about winning in different ways, what did you take away from today's game and how they were able to come away with the victory, even though they shot the worst percentage that they have all season?
I don't take away a lot, Ethan. It was against the Wizards. No Evan Mobley. I guess the positive from the Cavs standpoint is that they were able to have the kind of defensive performance that they had tonight, one of their better ones all season long, with Evan Mobley on the sidelines, with Jarrett Allen anchoring the paint, with a switch-heavy approach that has been basically their calling card all season long. So, you have to put it in perspective. It was the Wizards. The Wizards were without 5 players, and the Cavs came into this game as the biggest favorite in any game in the NBA all year. They were 17-point favorites. So nobody expected the Wizards to compete with the Cavs, and they did, actually. It was a 2-possession game in the final minutes of this one before the Cavs extended it to double digits. But, as you said, on a night that they didn't have their best offensively, it was their worst shooting night of the season, one of their worst offensive performances just overall. For them to find a way to win and show that they can still lean into their defense, and that can be a formula for success even on a night that they don't have Evan Mobley, who is their best, most impactful defender. I thought that was a positive for the Cavs. But beyond that, I don't know that there are too many other takeaways from this one.
And this Wizards team is interesting, right? Because we know them as the bottom of the barrel in the Eastern Conference. Bottom of the barrel.
Interesting. You keep using interesting, and it feels like you just want to say bad, but you're just going with interesting instead to not disrespect the NBA team that took the floor tonight for the Wizards.
Don't want to disrespect, right? But this is still a team that even without a whole lot of a slew of players, like you mentioned, 5 different guys, including Kyle Kuzma, Sadiq Bey, all these other guys that could not take the floor tonight. Yeah, the list goes on. The list goes on. This is also the same team, I believe, similar to the team that they trotted out and defeated the Denver Nuggets the other night.
So they've beaten Atlanta twice, and they beat Denver on a pretty fluky night. Yeah.
So obviously the Cavs come in and they know that this is a trap game. They come off of a week of practice, a week of rest, and there's this inkling of rust. There's this inkling of we need to apply everything that we've been doing in these practices. And we talked to Kenny Atkinson, and George Niang said at a shoot-around earlier this morning that they were focused on their defensive assignments. And it felt that way tonight when it came to what the Cavs were able to do, pressuring the ball at the point of attack, switching. And Chris, this is one of the – and you talked about this a lot after the game in the locker room with these guys. This is one of the most switch-heavy teams in the NBA. What have you seen as a positive, or what have you seen for this team to be able to utilize that scheme to their benefit?
Well, I think it starts with the versatility that they have throughout the course of this roster, and President of Basketball Operations Kobe Altman and General Manager Mike Gansey and Assistant GM Brandon Weems, they deserve a lot of credit for identifying the players that they have in the past. And Kenny Atkinson, he comes from Golden State. Before that, he was in Los Angeles. Before that, he was with the Brooklyn Nets. His teams in the past, where he's been, they prefer to switch. When you get into a playoff environment, no matter what team you're playing against, you're going to do some switchy stuff to try and take that opponent, that offense out of its rhythm. And that's what a switch defense is designed to do. It's designed to create a level of stagnation for the opposing offense. It's designed to force them into an isolation situation. It's designed to force them into a situation where they're hunting mismatches, and it's designed to keep the ball in front of you. So I think that's the thing that the Cavs benefit from the most, is that, they're able, well, a number of their defenders are able to better stay attached and in front of some of these ball handlers that they're facing from these other teams. And I don't have the updated numbers. I'm still waiting for the updated numbers from somebody that I know in the league. They're going to send them to me in the morning. But I believe after tonight, the Cavs are the switch heaviest team in the NBA. And they switch around 40% of the time. And nobody in the league switches more than that. And I think it's more about not necessarily, like, part of it is it fits their personnel and they have the versatility. Karis LeVert can guard 1 through 4. Dean Wade can guard 1 through 5, maybe 2 through 5 is probably more accurate there. Darius can guard at times both guard spots, some smaller forwards. That's kind of hit and miss when it comes to him. But, they don't have a bunch of one position players throughout this roster. So I think they feel like they can get away with some of these switches. Isaac Okoro can guard probably 1 through 4. So part of it is the personnel, but I also think, Ethan, is just preparation for what they plan to do and what they think is going to be necessary when it gets to April, May, and June. And you start developing those habits in the regular season, and you start trying to get that communication down during the regular season. And if there are slip-ups, there are slip-ups, but it allows you to work through things in meaningful game situations that you think you're going to need and that you think you're going to rely on when you get to the playoffs. And Kenny Atkinson came here, Ethan, and he talked about, basically from the first day that he got here, it's about a bigger picture. Winning games in the regular season, that's nice. Being the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, that would be nice too. But it's all about, how do we take the next step as the organization tries to do that. And the next step for them is deeper playoff runs, more playoff success. And Kenny Atkinson is a strong believer in his core that switching on the defensive end of the floor is a formula, if you have the right personnel, is a formula for success in a playoff environment.
And you talk about that, and we talked to Jarrett Allen about this after the game, and he was adamant and very upfront. This is different from anything the Cavs have done in the past. Like, this is not something that they've leaned on, even while being a defense-heavy team. Like, they weren't a switching team. They were funnel everybody to the paint. Not to this level. Or to this frequency either, right? Like, it was more funnel the guys to the paint and let Jarrett and Evan handle the business. And they're doing that still, but they're also switching at the point of attack to the point where Darius is guarding bigger defenders or bigger offensive players, and Jarrett Allen is switching on the guards, which he said he's still getting comfortable doing. He's not comfortable yet, but it's getting to that point where he's getting used to it. And that's helpful as well. And I think it's interesting when you talk about this team in particular and the lineup that the Cavs were able to throw out tonight. Obviously, without Evan Mobley, who is one of the best defenders in the NBA. We've had this conversation since he got to the league. And with him out, it kind of made it difficult for the Cavs to want to do the same similar style things, except for the fact that they were able to plug in probably the 2 better defenders that they wanted to when it comes to switching as a whole. Like, Isaac Okoro can guard 1 through 4, like you said. Dean Wade, 2 through 5, 1 through 5, depending on the point guard situation. Those 2 guys both got the start. Isaac Okoro coming back from being out 2 games in a row with the left knee contusion. And Dean Wade obviously also being back, but he's been back for a little bit now. I think that's a really strong lineup, Chris, when you talk about Donovan, Darius, Isaac, Dean, and Jarrett Allen. And We also talked about how Jarrett Allen didn't get a whole lot of love in recent games because of his activity on the offensive end or lack thereof. And today he showed that when it comes time for him to step up on that end of the floor, he can. He had 21 points on 7 of 9 from the field. He had 11 rebounds, and he was also active on the offensive glass. And I understand people would be like, hey, why are you talking about Dean Wade? He stunk tonight offensively. He missed all 7 of his 3-point shots. He was 1 of 8 from the field, but he also had 5 offensive rebounds of his 7 coming off on the offensive end. Chris, I know this was a down night, and I want you, as mayor of Dean Wade Island, to speak your case onto why people should not overreact to a down game from Dean.
Well, just because it's one game, but he was flat out terrible. I mean, there's no way around it. His minutes were bad, and Kenny Atkinson had to go away from him at various points throughout the course of tonight. When Dean makes his outside shots, it just, creates a different kind of ceiling for this team offensively. And it's basically a game changer, because if you have him defending the way that he's capable of defending, and on top of that, hitting shots, it's just different. It's a different feel. It's a different look. It's a different level of confidence that he plays with. But he was awful tonight. There's no way around that. 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 7 from 3-point range, tossed up an air ball at one point. So, yeah, I mean, he did some other things to help the team. As you mentioned, 5 offensive rebounds, second chance opportunities, provided them some decent minutes at the power forward spot, slid into the starting lineup. Those things were fine, but this was not the best night for Dean Wade, and he's going to have to be a lot better. And, if you start looking at his numbers throughout the course of the season, his shooting numbers are not flattering, and he's going to have to find it. He's going to have to find more consistency on the offensive end of the floor, especially with Max Strus coming back any day now. And Evan Mobley is going to be back in the lineup soon, because this is a minor ankle injury, and the Cavs are just being cautious with it. And Kenny Atkinson talked before the game how he is somebody who is involved in this decision-making process when it comes to all of these injuries, and he prefers himself to take a cautious approach. He prefers to give these guys an extra day, or an extra 2 days, or an extra 3 days, whatever it may be, as opposed to bringing them back too soon and then possibly having them have a setback. But, guys are going to lose minutes here or there throughout the course of this next week, 2 weeks. And we talked about how Kenny is probably going to try and play 11, right? But that means like a couple of minutes here from one guy, a couple of minutes here from another guy. Well, like the couple minutes could turn into 6 minutes, depending on how the guy is playing, if you're talking about the back end of the rotation. So as good of a defender as Dean is, as much as the numbers love him as a defensive player, and he can find a way to do some positive enough things, especially offensive rebounding, being in the right positions defensively, communication, switchability, all that kind of stuff. 30% from 3-point range is just not going to cut it. 34% from the field is just not going to cut it. Like, if you're Kenny Atkinson and you're looking at, okay, whose minutes am I going to take in order to give them to Max Strus, at this point you're taking Dean's before you're taking Isaac's, right? Just based on the way that the guys are playing. Isaac's giving the Cavs more on the offensive end than Dean is. Isaac is giving them more consistency from 3-point range, no matter what the reputation says, no matter how a defense is going to approach both of those guys defensively. Isaac is shooting a better percentage. He's more reliable right now as an offensive player as a whole, and he's certainly more reliable as a shooter. In this team, offense, they talk about defense and they talk about how that's their identity. But the best thing that they do is on the offensive end of the floor. So if you're going to get more from Isaac and they're comparable enough defenders, the guy who's at the risk of losing those minutes. I mean, Dean's not playing as well as George Niang. He's not playing as well as Sam Merrill. Again, the defense is tough to replicate. He is the wing with size and strength and physicality, and he can downsize. He can play 3, 4, and 5. Other guys are more like 2/3. He's a 3/4. So that certainly benefits him when you're talking about this big picture conversation. But he needs to be way better than he's been on the offensive end for Kenny Atkinson to justify, him continuing to get consistent playing time.
And I wanted to touch on Isaac, right? Because we talked about how good he's been defensively, and I think we've done a decent job of giving him praise throughout the season. But tonight was another night where you got to see it to another level on the offensive end, right? And you talk about leading the way for the Cavs scoring wise in the second half, period, for the Cavs when it comes to Isaac having 4 of 5 from the field and sinking 3 of 4 from deep. He was the only player in the second half for the Cavs to have more than one 3-pointer made. He basically saved, if you want to call it saving, shooting 29% in the second half from 3-point range, their percentage on the night and all those different things. So being able to see him drop 13 points in the second half while having the assignment against Jordan Poole, obviously not a superstar, but somebody who definitely can get it going. He held Jordan Poole in the second half, or the team collectively held Jordan Poole in the second half to 5 points, 1 of 7 from the field and 0 of 4 from 3. Like, it's a testament to the amount of work that Isaac has put in. And we say this all the time. Donovan Mitchell always praises him for the amount of work that he puts in on the sidelines and behind the scenes. But I get a different sense about Isaac this season, Chris. I get a different feel from him when it comes to him being more of himself in front of everybody else. And I asked this question to some of the guys in the locker room tonight about how not just him, but the entire team, like Jarrett Allen celebrating after a dunk, not just celebrating after a defensive 3-second call. Isaac hitting a dagger 3 in the corner, turning around before the shot hit the bottom of the net, and then celebrating in front of the Wizards bench, and then running back on defense doing a celebration. He went finger gun into the pounding of the chest. It's felt like, and this even goes back to practice or shoot around this morning, where he was just goofing around and still hitting shots with the trainers, with the pool noodles, trying to stop him from making shots. It just feels like he's playing with a higher level of confidence and freedom than he has in the past.
I think that's true. I think part of that is just the evolution of a player. You get more comfortable the more games that you play. You get more comfortable the more seasons you accumulate. You get more comfortable the more you're around the same kinds of guys, right? And this group, for the most part, is the same one that was here last year. So I think that benefits him. The other thing is he's got a contract now, right? He doesn't have to deal with some of that kind of stuff, the business of basketball, the other stuff off the floor that can, I don't want to say weigh you down, but it can be on your mind. It's just a natural thing. There's a human element involved. The freedom that he plays with, the confidence that he plays with, I think it's aided by the fact that, the Cavs have invested in him and the Cavs have shown their belief in him. And Kenny Atkinson has empowered him, and he speaks glowingly of Isaac. And Isaac knows where he's going to be. And even if he doesn't know exactly what his role is on a given night, he has a general idea of how he can best help this team. Like, the minutes may change, the shot attempts may change, but who he is and what the Cavs need from him, he understands that, and he can play to that particular role. So I think that provides him an element of freedom too. But like I said, I don't think you can discount the fact that he isn't in a contract year. He has his contract. He went through all of that nonsense in the offseason. It was his first taste of free agency. He did not like it. It was very difficult on him. He doesn't want to have to go through it again. But he knows this is where he's going to be. And even if this is not where he's going to be for his entire career, he knows for the next couple of years at least that he has a level of financial stability and a level of financial security. And I think when a team invests in a guy and they give him a multi-year contract, like that tells the guy something. That speaks to the guy. That allows him to have a clear mind and a freedom and a level of confidence. And he's playing well. That's the other thing, Ethan. If he's going to shoot a little bit more than 40% from 3-point range, that's going to allow him to play with freedom. That's going to allow him to play with confidence. He's not going to be hesitant. He's not going to be pump faking. You know what I mean? If he's shooting 25% or 30% from 3-point range, it's not going to be as fun for him. Yeah, I mean, he's going to defend his butt off and he's going to compete and stuff like that. But it's going to bother him if he's shooting a poor percentage from 3-point range and he's not making defenses pay. You know, when he's feeling disrespected by opponents because they just don't guard him and he can bang those threes when he is completely unguarded, you know, he's able to stick it to the defense and he's able to celebrate and turn around and talk some trash to the opposing bench and stuff like that. So I do think part of it is how Kenny Atkinson is using him. I do think part of it is he doesn't have the contract. I do think part of it is just a natural evolution and growth with this team. And I do think part of it is, you know, just a guy who understands his role, who is playing well in that role. And that allows him to be more like himself.
And before he shot 75% from three tonight, he came into the game shooting 46.3% from three on the season, averaging 2.6 attempts from 3-point range. And he shot 4 tonight. So, I mean, he is continuing to grow and show himself from beyond the arc. Obviously, we always go back to the playoff scenario of last season where he did not show himself to that caliber. And he's showing in the regular season, again, he was good in the regular season last year, but it will take until the playoffs to show if he's truly made that jump on that end. And Chris, we talked about a lot this season. The Cavs cannot keep shooting to the percentages that they have been. So it's about when there's going to be a drop-off. And for me, to see the team have one of its worst shooting nights of the entire season and still Isaac waited for his moment and still knocked down shots, it was a little bit telling. But
I also think it's validating to Isaac that, okay, if we're being honest here, he has scored in double figures 4 times all season long. 4, that's it. It's not a lot, right? When it comes to making multiple threes in a game, he's done that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 times. Only 9 times. So it's like there's a limit to what he brings offensively, and I think there's a limit to his role within this offense because of the number of touches that he's going to get, because of the number of shot attempts that he's going to get, and just the number of opportunities in general. But I think it's validation for him that he still is valued by Kenny Atkinson, and he's still valued by this front office, and he's still valued by his teammates with that level of offensive production. You know what I mean? So I think it just allows him to be himself. Like, hey, I don't have to go out there and make all these threes. I don't have to go out there and score all these points. I can just be me. I can do all these other little things that help a team win. I can bring the defense. I can bring the toughness. I can bring the aggressiveness at the point of attack. And those things are valued. And those things are going to get me playing time. And those things are going to get me starting opportunities when Max Strus is out of the lineup or coming back on a minute restriction. You know what I mean? And I think like he understands that this organization values the things that he brings to the table, and they've quantified that with the contract that they gave him. And he doesn't have to go outside of himself or do anything else extra to get that level of recognition or that level of validation. So I think that's an important point as well. The other thing is, you know, Ethan, he's not just camped in the corner. One of the things that I think we have to look at in terms of the deeper numbers, and we'll do this over the next couple of days, just how many times he's taken threes above the break, or how many times he's taken threes at the top of the arc, or how many times, he's playing out of the pocket with a short roll or something along those lines. If I had to guess, the majority of his 3-point attempts over the last couple of years before this season were from the corner. Like, people in the locker room were joking, do we have to change your name to Isaac Okoro? Because that's the only place that you're allowed to go within this offense. And I think using him the way that they are offensively and allowing him to take shots from other places, I would have to look at the numbers, but I gotta believe that he's got more above the break threes this year already than what he had all of last season. And being able to move around and feel like he's involved offensively, even if he's not getting the shot attempts, even if he's not getting, the buckets and scoring double digits more frequently than what he has, there's a level of involvement to everybody within this kind of offensive style that I just think it makes it more fun.
Oh, yeah. And these guys are having a whole lot of fun, Chris. Like, I wanted to add an anecdote from the fourth quarter of what we talked about, celebration, all the different signatures that we got to see tonight, which I felt like was added abundance, more so tonight than against any other team this season thus far. And the first one that came in the fourth quarter before Isaac Okoro's turnaround was Darius Garland's kind of kiss to the sky. And we've talked about that not being showmanship, but tonight it was, and it was only because he directed it at former Cavs coach John Jerome Outlaw on the Wizards bench. He blew a kiss, and then he gave like a little extra smooch at the end of it for a little taunting extra. I think it's funny because Darius, as much as he has friends around the league, coaching staffs, and all these former players that he's played with and against, he likes to talk smack. And that's what he told me when I asked the question tonight was he hopes it continues. He hopes that these guys continue to show themselves as who they really are, because that's when they're having the most fun. That's when they're enjoying themselves to the highest level, and that allows them to talk some more trash. And obviously this comes in wins. But, Chris, the last part of this podcast that I wanted to touch on was...
No. Not the last part of the podcast, because we have to talk about something else, Ethan. We have to talk about you taking a power nap inside one of the loudest arenas in the NBA with 20,000 people inside Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And during halftime, whoever was performing at halftime, you plop your head down straight on your computer like me on a tray table on an airplane and take a power nap. And everybody from the Cavs and other media members were like, yo, what's up with your boy? Like, what's going on back here? And I turn around and I see you plopped straight down on your computer. What the hell was that?
I needed 10 minutes, Chris. 10 minutes. That's all I needed.
Oh, my God.
10 minutes, man. Sometimes that's all you need.
Do we need to get you a better routine before games or something like that?
Nah, it was just, I think it was just yesterday, because I've never felt that way before, but it was just the video from yesterday when I was editing and exporting it took longer to get exported than it usually does. I don't know if it was an internet issue or a processing issue or whatever, but I was just sitting here looking at the export file, and it was 2 hours to export, and I
oh my God.
You can't touch it when you can touch stuff when it's uploading to YouTube, but if you're exporting into media encoder or from Premiere directly, you can't touch nothing or it's gonna go slower. And I was okay, let me close all of my tabs, all this different stuff, and I was up to 5, and then had to my whole routine today was just off. So, but it was
okay.
Just a 10-minute power nap, man, during halftime. I honestly didn't think anyone was going to know this, but
You don't think anybody was going to notice a dude on media row with their head with their hood up on their head and their face straight down on top of their computer?
Yep.
You didn't think anybody was going to notice that?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. So, did the 10 minutes do anything for you? Did it make you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
better for the second half?
Oh yeah, I was good. I was good for the remainder of the game. That's all I needed. 10 minutes, man. That's because I've been reading about this is like I think it's any more than 15 minutes like makes you more sleepy because you actually get into REM sleep. But like if you do like within 15 minutes, like you good. So I looked at the halftime clock. I was like, I need 2 minutes to get back into it before we get back in the game action. So I'll take a 10-minute power nap. We'll be in and out. We'll be good. And
Did you actually fall asleep?
Oh yeah. Oh, I was out.
How long did it take you to fall asleep?
None. I put my head down and I was gone.
Oh my god. I mean, that arena is loud.
It was halftime. Nobody was doing anything.
Everything about that arena is loud.
Not
Even
that
the
loud.
background noise. I mean, I can sleep through anything. I've slept through a tornado. I did sleep through a tornado that ripped my tree out, uprooted it. And I slept through it. And the notification that I got from the weather service that went on both my phones, because I have two phones, I slept through those too. So, I mean, I sleep through a lot. And you kind of have to if you do this job because you're in noisy hotels and you don't know what the environment's going to be outside your hotel and stuff like that, and planes. And I mean, I've fallen asleep on planes and I've had to have people wake me up after it landed because I sleep through like the landing and the bumps and the announcements that the flight attendants make and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. Like I can sleep a lot of places. I don't think I could sleep in an arena.
I mean, hey, it was. That's why I thought nobody was gonna notice. I thought there was too much going on around that like I can just put my hood up. Everybody like just leave a boy be. I learned that from Bill Plaschke and during my time in LA. Probably the bad thing to pick up, but yeah.
You learned from Plaschke to sleep at
Dude,
halftime?
he used to sleep. No, not during halftime. He used to sleep during games, like during baseball games.
Don't do that.
Well, no, obviously that's why I chose halftime to do it. I was like, I have 10 minutes. That's all I needed. I'm definitely taking this out of the podcast.
I just love the fact that you were reading an article about like what is the best range of a nap these days, and you decided on Friday night, halftime of Cavs Wizards. You know what? I'm going to try that. I've been reading about this. Let's give it a go here at halftime. You could have. The other thing you could have done is gone downstairs into the media center where it's quiet and nothing else is going on and taken a nap in there instead of right there on Media Row at the top of M104.
Hey, man, I did not think nobody pay attention to your boy when we get to Media Row. I was not thinking nobody was looking or checking for me. And then I realized that people had to go get food and had to walk next to me. That's pretty much more so what it was.
Yeah, and they hand out box scores at halftime and stuff like that.
I thought I had already got my box score at this time. Anyway, the last part of the podcast that I wanted to get to had to do with
talk more about this game, really.
What? Well, see, this is why I fell asleep because there wasn't a whole lot going on. but
if there's a game, it's the one against the 3-win Washington Wizards where they didn't have 5 guys in their lineup. Sure.
There you go. See, now you're catching on. Now you're catching my drift. I also don't drink coffee, so for everybody that's like, why didn't you just drink an energy drink or drink coffee? Nah, I was good. I'll stick to my 10-minute nap.
Like eat some chocolate or something. I don't know.
We did that. We did that today. shout out to Kenzie with the Oreo like makeshift pops or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Delicious. But the Cavs have had a lot of complaints this season about free throws and the amount that they've gotten and the lesser amount that they've gotten in compared to other teams, especially with the amount of drives that they have each game. at the top of the league in that category. And today they got 40 free throws, Chris. 40 of them joints. Like, that's it's the most you can do. Basically, like I don't think like teams don't average over 30 a game, and they got 40. The Washington Wizards got 11. The Wizards head coach was furious, apparently, about this. And the Cavs were like, finally, we're getting some calls. The one thing that stuck out to me is in a night that they weren't shooting the ball well, and for a team that leads the league, came into the game leading the league in 3-point percentage, they are not a good free throw shooting team. Yeah. They shot 70% from the free throw line tonight. And so hitting just 28 out of 40, and they missed 5 in the first quarter. So what do you equate this to? And do you think the Cavs are able to complain about getting foul call or not getting foul calls if they're not going to hit the free ones?
So I think part of the reason why Washington was upset is that 3 of the top 7 games that the Cavs have had in most free throw attempts have come against the Wizards. Now, we have to be honest here. The Wizards' defense is part of the reason for that, right? If you can't stay in front of guys, if you can't guard guys on the perimeter at the point of attack, you're going to be behind them. You're going to be reaching. You're going to be grabbing. They don't have elite shot blockers all over this team or anything like that. I like Koulibaly. I think Sarr has potential. But, like, Jonas Valanciunas isn't a rim protector. He's a lumbering big man who sometimes gets caught out of position, and he's going to fall. Like, Jordan Poole can't guard anybody. He's going to fall. You know what I mean? So, like, part of this is Washington's a bad defensive team. They've been a bad defensive team for a number of years now, and when you're a bad defensive team, you tend to fall a little bit, especially when you're playing against an elite level offense like the Cavs that have Darius, Donovan, guys that you really can't guard in one-on-one situations, guys that you can't keep from attacking in transition. Karis LeVert can get to the free throw line and take dudes off the bounce. He was doing that tonight. So I think part of the reason why, Washington, in games against Washington, that's when the Cavs frequently go to the line, is because Washington can't defend them. Washington can't stop them. But yeah, you're right. I mean, for the Cavs, this is something that they're going to have to figure out. They're going to have to work on a little bit more than what they are. When Donovan misses free throws, that's not all that alarming. You feel like that's more of an aberration. So I think it just kind of depends on who we're talking about here. Jarrett's going to miss free throws. He missed 3 tonight. That shouldn't be all that surprising. Karis, I don't know what's going on with Karis from the free throw line. It's just, it hasn't been a good year of free throw shooting for him. But I think, as long as the free throws are being taken by the guys that the Cavs want to take them, then I think they'll live with whatever the result may be.
All righty. I appreciate that. I think I'm of the belief you can't complain and then miss them when you get them. Like that's my belief, because 70% from the free throw line would be tied for the worst in the league when it comes to free throw percentage with the Golden State Warriors, ironically enough.
Yep.
But with that,
believe it or not, that's not even the worst free throw percentage for the Cavs all season. That's the 7th worst. So they've been worse than that, which is a bad sign, by the way.
Yes, I believe that, because especially if they get less and they're already missing this many when they get 40, that makes sense. But
I mean, the bizarre one's Karis.
Yeah.
Because historically, he's been a better free throw shooter than this. Historically, he's around like 74%. Ever since he's come to the Cavs, he's been around 74%. He's under 70% for the year.
That's weird. It's really weird. But, all right. with that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs Insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can submit your questions for each week's episode of Hey Chris, or you can get live updates during the game with background knowledge about everything going on and just throughout the week, especially next week when they have more practices. This is where you'll get a lot of different insight. So to do that, sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word stop. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast. It's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.